Yeah, welcome back to Afia TV News Net. Our conversation centered around the Enugu'S education policy reforms, and tonight we have a one-on-one sit-down with the Commissioner for Education. In a decisive move aimed at protecting the future of children in the state, the Enugu State Ministry of Education, led by Honorable Commissioner Professor Enugu'S, has commenced the enforcement of educational policy compliance. And today, the ministry took bold steps to shut down substandard schools that have blatantly flouted the rules and put student lives at risk. This action follows an earlier call by the ministry for all operators of educational institutions across the basic and secondary school levels to comply with state regulations, which mandates registration and approval by the ministry. The 4-month grace period for schools to align with these directives has now expired, prompting the ministry to begin its clampdown on non-compliant schools. During the exercise, it was discovered that several schools had been operating under life-threatening conditions, subjecting innocent children to unsafe and unhealthy learning environments. And shockingly, schools were found to be in complete disregard of the rules guiding the establishment and management of educational institutions. Of course, we'll hear the rest from the Honorable Commissioner himself, who has joined me tonight, Professor Enugu'S. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I couldn't be more happier for the job that you're doing.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, so you've made very strong moves there in the education sector. And this is, I feel for everyone who really has education at the top of their heads, they feel pained, at the level of illegal schools that you have, pockets of, should I say plank schools, structures just everywhere, and then they come up with funny names. Some of them are international high schools and stuff like that. But we see you clamping down heavily on them. Tell us about the recent policies, that led to this illegal, because you're not the first commissioner to be on seat. And the others before you, I don't know how much work they did. But of course, obviously, you're here to do the job. So tell us about your policy.
Thank you. We're enforcing several interrelated policies right now. There is a general decline in learning outcomes. We have shared how, based on the assessment we did since last year, we've noticed a significant decline in foundational knowledge, numeracy, literacy, and the gaps exist in other areas. And this is not just manifest among our learners, but also the quality of teachers. And this is why His Excellency, our Governor, has been very bullish about investment in education. To radically turn things around in a way that means things that we should probably accomplish in 8 years. His Excellency is committed to make sure we get them done in less than 2 years because of how dire the situation is. And so the policies are part of a broader Enugu State government intervention in education. We have our infrastructure projects going on in the smart schools, construction of smart schools. We have GTC being rebuilt. We have the assessment of teacher applicants and recruitment of teachers. And by the end of October, we begin the training of 4,253 teachers that passed the assessment. In July, we did a unified exam for all SS2 students in the state. And the reason why we did that is that we wanted to capture the real class list of every school in Enugu State, public, private, admission, because it's those children who are in SS2 that will now this year, in this academic session, write external examinations. So with that list now, and the names of those students, we can ensure that those are the only students registered for WAEC in Enugu State. The reason why we've done this is so that people will not convert their schools into miracle centers and admit, bring students from other states and from unapproved schools, and then sponsor examination malpractices, which has been the custom, unfortunately, not just in Enugu State, but across the country. So these reform policies, the unified exam policy, the massive investment in education reform, in the training of teachers, in building of schools, are all part of, reforming the educational system. So what we're doing with the enforcing compliance of the licensing of schools, private schools, is part of this larger effort, right? It is part of a comprehensive program to ensure that the minimum standards for education, especially basic and post-basic education, are being met in the state. And we cannot emphasize the importance of these minimum standards enough. They specify, for example, what an educational institution should look like. Mm-hmm. The amenities you should have in a school, that you should have a library, you should have a toilet and bathroom, that you should have a certain class size, it should be ventilated so that children are not suffocating, and there should be a ratio, a student to teacher ratio. So for basic school, about 15 to 20 learners per teacher, right? And for early childhood, about 8 to 10 learners per teacher. And that the teachers have minimum qualifications they must have. They must have NCE minimum as teaching assistants, or at least a bachelor's degree in education. And ideally, they should have professional qualification examination by the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria. Because without those training, they cannot even prepare the scheme of work of the curriculum and teach our children. And on top of this, they are supposed to, for private entities to set up schools, the Ministry of Education have to evaluate those schools and grant them approval and license to operate those schools in Enugu State, and provide them with all the documentation, standards, curriculum that they need to be able to deliver quality education. We are finding that more than 1,000 private schools are out there without approval, without license.
Okay, so more than 1,000
yes.
in Enugu City.
In Enugu State.
Not the rural areas.
In Enugu State.
Okay, the state
in
generally.
Enugu State. And so what we're trying to do is to evaluate these schools, encourage them, those of them that actually have decent facilities and the resources and the professional teachers, to get registered and licensed. But those of them that pose an existential risk to the health and safety of our children, we have no option but to shut them down immediately.
Let me drag you back a bit, just a little bit. You mentioned the unified examination, and that piqued my interest. Mm-hmm. I'd like to know how you intend to drive that. Yeah. We know that, well, we usually say Enugu is small, but literally Enugu is big. Yeah, but how do you intend to really know that other students don't sneak in, from other states? It sounds like a great idea, but I'm curious to know the implementation that you want to have, especially human beings.
It is important for our students, for parents, for teachers, for school administrators to understand really what we are about to do and what we're already doing. So instead of having parents or students register for WAEC directly, we're having them basically pay their WAEC registration to the state government, and the state government, for those pre-qualified students, will transfer their WAEC registration to WAEC. Now, this means that all of those, illegal fees and charges that schools add on top of WAEC and, impose on parents are gone, right? It also means that it is only pre-qualified Enugu State's SS2 students, now in SS3, who took the unified exam, are recognized by policy as eligible for external examinations, not just WAEC, but also NECO and NAPTEB. And we have written to the administrators of these external examinations, informing them of the Enugu State policy. Because as a state, we have a right to ensure that our children are examined based on merit. That we don't want to have a situation where students have A1 in mathematics and English, and then they get to the university and they don't know what they're doing. So we are running a merit-based educational system. If our children are failing, we want to know, so we know where to intervene. That's another reason why we did the unified exam, because it has shown us actually the performance across the state of our students, real performance, because it was strictly supervised and monitored. A lot of our students failed in certain areas, in certain subjects, and now that has enabled us to, develop interventions in those subject areas, preparing them for WAEC, because they know now that there is no room for examination malpractice. There's no room for miracle centers anymore in Enugu State. Even the commissioner, as a commissioner for education, I cannot even authorize somebody whose name is not on that list to be registered for exam. Only His Excellency, the governor, can offer that dispensation on a case-by-case basis in special circumstances.
And that starts from next year?
That starts from now. So this year's external examination, we're already enforcing and implementing this.
So it's really good news for me, because I just a little story. I know a boy who wrote the last WAEC, this year's WAEC, but prior to him writing, he had mistakenly mentioned to me that he was applying for a special center. And his mom, says, oh, they wanted to apply for a special center somewhere in Abani. And they forgot, they told me it was a special center. And then recently they saw me and I asked, oh, how was your result? How was your JAM? He said, oh, he failed JAM. And then, oh, how was your WAEC? He says, oh, auntie, I had all A's in my WAEC. So I felt so pained, for them it was like a hurdle past, but it was so painful what parents and how parents can enable these children.
Yeah, we know that culture change is not easy, but we also want our parents to understand that the value of education is in the actual knowledge that our children acquire, not just certificate. Right now, you do not have a lot of, government jobs or, employing people just because of certificate. Employers, industrialists, companies are looking for real skills.
Right.
If your child cannot demonstrate competency in skill and in knowledge, they will not be able to survive in the emerging economies of today's world. So it is in the best interest of every parent to ensure that their children actually study and that they merit the grades that they get at the end of their examination. Not that they have A1, 9A1, and they cannot even solve a simple equation on their own. They cannot solve a simple problem. They do not have 21st century skills. They do not have basic digital literacy competency. And we see this not just, the quality of our graduates from the past few years are grossly disappointing, We see this in the assessment we have just done for teacher applicants. You see young people who are in their 20s, early 30s, and they do not know how to operate a mouse. They take a mouse and they're moving it on the screen. And these are people who completed, projects, who are graduates of tertiary institutions, and who are to be, who are they going to teach? So the problem is real, it's existential, it's one that the state government takes very seriously. And we cannot achieve this without the understanding and cooperation of Enugu State parents. People need to understand that this is a state of emergency for the future of our children.
That's right. So let me know the major challenges that you've encountered in this operation. Not an easy one, I know. Yeah. You must have really got some tough skin to move around and do the job. Of course, knowing that some teachers and school owners are culprits to this, whole special center stuff. In fact, some people who own schools have to have special centers so that they can tell people who are not doing so well to move there. I've had some teachers or some school owners on this show, and I've discussed with them about, education reforms and policies. And one thing I know that strikes me as a core member then, I know the school owner of the school I was serving in Bayelsa actually told me never to give a student 0 and I was almost suspended for giving the actual mark because it says the parents are going to be angry. So what's your major challenge here? Have you had to have interface with parents as well who were saying, okay, you can't you can't just shut down this school and all of that? And how do you deal with the teachers, school owners who are also into this sort of business?
Interestingly, parents in this private school approval compliance and licensing compliance intervention, parents have actually been calling us and whistleblowing. So, for example, a neighborhood we went into yesterday in a part of Enugu, there was a church. We did it. There was no signboard for a school, but apparently there was a school there. And some parents came out and they told us that there is an illegal school in there and that the condition was terrible. And when we went in there, we couldn't believe what we saw. So we get calls from, even rural areas, got calls from Aniri, from all over the place, even from PGs and Igwes telling us that there are, illegal private schools in their communities. So I think there is a general understanding that this is a crisis and that something needs to be done. Now, in terms of proprietors of private schools, we've had almost a year of engagement with education sector leadership in the state. This includes associations of proprietors of private schools, the various education commissions of mission schools, and we have painstakingly explained to them the policy reforms that are forthcoming. And when the approval and licensing policy, for example, was released in June of this year, it was a product of extensive engagement. And we have subsequently had multiple meetings where we had to explain the rationale for the policy. Now, for example, we know that the Enugu state has been implementing basic education since 2005. The UBEC Act was passed nationally in 2004, and a year later, Enugu State domesticated it. And from 2005, wherever you have JS 1 to 3, even though they exist inside secondary schools, NSUBEB will, provide the building, provide the teachers, pay those teachers, because UBEC Act meant that we no longer have a terminating primary school at primary 6, but that with basic education, it goes to JS 3. So Enugu State has been implementing basic education from primary 1 to JS 3 since 2005. What we're doing with the smart school is to now add nursery 1 to 3 and ensure that from nursery 1 to JS 3 is in the same school environment, and that we're delivering free universal basic education to the Enugu. And last year, Nigeria passed the Senior Secondary Education Commission Act, which requires that all states should now domesticate senior secondary school. So we're no longer going to license secondary schools from JS 1 to SS3, but only from SS1 to SS3. So that when you finish basic school, you now transition to senior secondary, whether it's traditional senior secondary or technical and vocational school senior secondary. And that is the model that is reflected in our policy reform for licensing and approval compliance. And that is what we're also enforcing.
Okay, so I'd like to know if, I like the job that you're doing with smart schools and the teachers, making sure that they are up to standard. And I like the fact that you also said, okay, for the basic requirement for teachers to teach in Enugu State has to be NCE and all of that. Will there come a time where you would be able to, take in all the private school teachers and be sure, not just the smart schools now, and be sure that they're really qualified? Yeah.
So we have, as we're building the smart school, we also, the state government is also establishing the Center for Experiential Learning and Innovation at the Enugu State College of Education Technical. This is a center that at a time can train 1,000 teachers. And the intention is to ensure that every teacher in Enugu State passes through that center, whether they're teaching in public schools or in private schools, because they need to be certified to deliver the Enugu State basic and post-basic education curriculum using experiential pedagogy. And so that is His Excellency's plan for a complete professionalization of teaching. because we understand that teaching, while being a civil service, is also a profession. The same way we cannot, when we're sick, we want to go to a qualified doctor. We want to ensure that qualified teachers teach our children. We are introducing policies that ensure that every year, every teacher in Enugu State completes 40 hours of mandatory professional development training, and that they write an assessment in every August. And that we are partnering with the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria to make sure that all our teachers go through the PQE, the Professional Qualification Examination. That is foundational certification to be a teacher in Nigeria. And our goal is to ensure that every single Enugu State teacher is certified by TROC and has gone through experiential pedagogy training.
So where does that leave the core members who are, should I say, the most beloved of school owners, because they probably have to pay them less? Where does that leave them in your scheme of appointments? Because most often core members are recruited to schools. Yeah. What do you do?
So schools, you still have opportunities for teaching aides and teaching assistants.
Okay.
Being a core member does not make you automatically an educationist. But if you have a background, if your degree is in education and you're looking for experience and you want to serve in schools, there is opportunity, right, for teaching assistants, for teaching aides in all our schools. So we'll still have a lot of need for core members to assist in our schools.
Okay. So let's have your ideas to begin to wrap up on what you want to do October 1st.
Yeah. So this year's October 1st is a really special one. We have significant milestones in education reform to celebrate. We're looking forward to His Excellency, our governor, interfacing with Enugu State learners and teachers, and they are very excited to hear from him. We are, nationally, there's not a specific theme for this year's October 1st, but we in the Ministry of Education in Enugu State, we see this as a moment to celebrate education as key to prosperity for all. And this is in alignment with His Excellency, our governor's vision, that education is the surest weapon against poverty. It is the most sustainable way to build the human capital of our people. It is the sustainable solution to achieving economic prosperity. And we want to celebrate our teachers. We want to celebrate our students that are doing us proud. They just went to Abuja and they won the national debate. And next year, they're going to be representing Nigeria in the United States.
Congratulations.
So Enugu State learners and teachers have a lot to celebrate and still a lot of work to do. But we like to celebrate milestones to continue to encourage our learners. Yeah. So October 1 is going to be really special for us.
Congratulations to you and your office for making sure that the students who had not gone, participated in national debates for a while had to do that under your leadership and, of course, under the Peter Mba's administration. So we want to say very big congratulations to the 4 students and a big thank you to the governor for enabling the students, giving them the room to be able to go, and your office also.
And they all received the scholarship. All the students that went
to university level?
To university level.
Oh, wow.
From the Enugu State government. And currently, the other thing that the Enugu might expect soon is that the annual school census will be launched later this month. And so you're going to see Ministry of Education staff and agents in various schools, in various communities, collecting data and information on our in-school and out-of-school children, preparing and gathering all the data that will enable us make sure that once the smart schools are ready, that we seamlessly transition our children into those smart schools. So this year's census is very, very important for us. So we are appealing to parents, guardians, teachers, community leaders to give all the support to ensure that information on all children children of school age are captured, including their health data. Because we want to be able to make sure that we have healthy, supported children in our school system.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Honorable Commissioner for Education, Enugu State, Professor Enugu'S Mba. You're really doing a good job with your ministry.
Thank you. I appreciate that.